My Hero Academia, 10 Wishes All Might would make on the Dragon Balls. All Might seems to have it all, but if he collected the 7 Dragon Balls to summon Shenron, there would be a few things that he'd ask for. One of the greatest heroes in My Hero Academia is none other than All Might, the symbol of peace. Alone, he held the tide of crime and villainy at bay, a great bulwark against the criminal underbelly of civilization. He also has the power of one for all and incredible charisma backing him up, and altogether, it seemed like the man was simply perfect, even invincible. But he wasn't. All Might had his own insecurities, regrets, and problems, and now, he is nearly powerless. What if he could wish his problems away? If All Might gathered the 7 Dragon Balls from the Dragon Ball universe and summoned the great dragon Shenron, he would have a few things to ask of him, depending on recent events and how old All Might is. What should he ask for? 10. All Might would wish for a quirk in his youth. All Might was once a kid like anyone else, and he was hardly a muscle-bound hero of society. At the time, he was just a skinny boy with a dream. Not unlike his future protege Izuku Midoriya, and he didn't even have a quirk at all. That must have been frustrating. If this young Toshinori Yagi happened upon the 7 Dragon Balls and summoned Shenron, he wouldn't hesitate to ask for a powerful quirk to realize his potential as a hero. All this would be before he met Nana Shimura, though. 9. All Might would wish for Melissa Shield to have a suitable quirk. As a young man, All Might made good friends with an American scientist named David Shield, and All Might soon befriended David's daughter, Melissa, as well. They got along well, in a way. Melissa saw All Might as a doting uncle, and All Might wished Melissa the best. However, Melissa was born quirkless, just like All Might. And she has found ways to compensate for that. Melissa is getting along fine, but still, All Might would likely wish for Melissa to have a quirk that suited her needs. Perhaps a defensive quirk to fend off thugs who would harass her. Or a quirk like Mei Hatsum's Zoom quirk, good for tinkering with gadgets. 8. All Might would wish to revive Nana Shimura. The 7th holder of One for All was Nana Shimura, who was noted for her extreme power, her natural flight quirk, and her radiant charm and beauty. Nana was a fine hero, but she couldn't keep it up forever, so she passed the torch to the young Toshinori Yagi. Tragically, Nana died not long after that, since bearing 2 quirks at once is too much for the body to bear. No doubt All Might greatly missed Nana when she died, and he wouldn't hesitate to ask Shenron to revive her, even if she no longer bears One for All. 7. All Might would wish to have a perfect disguise before skinny form. Eventually, All Might could wander around anonymously in his skinny form, due to his serious injury at the hands of All for One. Until then, though, All Might was a very distinct and conspicuous person, due to his appearance and fame alike. He can't even get the morning newspaper without being asked for 100 autographs. All Might is a kind fellow who appreciates his many fans, but from time to time, he might want a chance to go about his daily life without being mobbed by his adoring fans, for sheer convenience. So, he'd ask Shenron for an ideal disguise, and thus he'd emulate Superman/Clark Kent a little better. Even Superman gets a break from being Superman sometimes. Can't All Might do the same? 6. All Might would wish for All for One's immediate capture. All Might soon earned himself an arch-nemesis, the terrifying supervillain, All for One, the symbol of evil. All for One is even older than All Might. A one-man army with countless quirks and the strength to wield them all. All Might eventually defeated him, but at an extreme cost. All Might isn't afraid of a fight, but All for One is no ordinary villain. And he was the anchor of Japan's villainous side. So, All Might would hurry things up and ask Shenron to teleport All for One right into the Tartarus prison, totally confined and restrained upon arrival. No more symbol of evil. 5. All Might would wish to erase his injury. If All Might never asks Shenron to capture All for One, then he must fight All for One the hard way, and that means suffering a serious injury after their battle. All Might's injury is sapping his strength, and it caused All Might to gain his weak skinny form. Eventually, All Might will lose the ability to use his muscle form at all. All Might is doing his best to keep fighting and keep up appearances despite this wound. But it's getting difficult, and he resents the time limit this wound put on him. So, he'd summon Shenron and simply wish it away, which should be quite easy for Shenron to do. All Might is back in top shape. 4. All Might would wish for all Nomus to be destroyed. All for One has many villains at his disposal with the League of Villains, but there is also the matter of the Nomus. These grotesque, lab-grown humanoids are powerful creatures packed with battle-oriented quirks, and the newer models are truly terrifying. Just ask Endeavor, who faced the hooded Nomu. All Might doesn't like the idea of lab-grown supervillains running around. So he'd contain this problem by wishing Shenron to wipe out these abominations where they stand. That should take a little pressure off the pro-heroes. They have enough villains to deal with as it is. 3. All Might would wish for a perfect barrier around UA's campus. Fortunately, the UA school has a handful of pro-heroes on staff as teachers, including All Might himself, Midnight the R-rated hero, Present Mike, and several others. However, Japan's villains are bolder and more numerous than ever, and UA's existing security measures are starting to fall behind. The USJ incident is an example of that. All Might would feel terrible if UA was closed down for the student safety, but he also doesn't like the risk of another villain attack. Therefore, he'd ask Shenron to make a perfect energy barrier around the school, allowing students and staff to pass through while rejecting all villains and criminals. 3. All Might would wish for a perfect barrier around UA's campus. Fortunately, the UA school has a handful of pro-heroes on staff as teachers, including All Might himself, Midnight the R-rated hero, Present Mike, and several others. However, Japan's villains are bolder and more numerous than ever, and UA's existing security measures are starting to fall behind. The USJ incident is an example of that. All Might would feel terrible if UA was closed down for the student safety, but he also doesn't like the risk of another villain attack. Therefore, he'd ask Shenron to make a perfect energy barrier around the school, allowing students and staff to pass through while rejecting all villains and criminals. 1. All Might would wish for Naomasa Tsukachi's safety. Another of All Might's helpers is the detective Naomasa Tsukachi, who is seen most often in the My Hero Academia Vigilantes spin-off manga series. In a way, Naomasa is like the new Sir Night-Eye for All Might's purposes, but Naomasa might or might not even have a quirk at all. Naomasa is a solid detective, and he will do just about anything to support All Might. This may prove highly dangerous at times, though, so if All Might doesn't have more pressing concerns with the Dragon Balls, he'll use them to summon Shenron and wish for some seriously thick plot armor for Naomasa, his good friend. All Might would feel terrible if Naomasa got badly injured or killed on his account. After all,